Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of MOJO Rising, How to Make Cancer Suck Less. I am joined today by a fellow cancer survivor and thriver who decided to take the issues and challenges she faced as part of her cancer journey and change the world for the better. And I couldn't be more excited to have her join us. She is one of those game changers that I met, and as soon as I met her, I knew she was a soul sister. So without further ado, Lisa, I'd like to ask you to do a little bit of an introduction and share a little bit about your story and how this came to be.
Well, first, thanks for having me. We are so excited to be a part of this podcast. I am Lisa. I was diagnosed with stage 2B breast cancer at age 39. I did a double mastectomy. I did 16 rounds of chemotherapy, including the dreaded red devil, adriamycin. I did 28 rounds of radiation. I had a total of 8 surgeries/procedures. That included fertility preservation, a full hysterectomy, multiple reconstructive surgeries. I took an aromatase inhibitor for 7 years. And I am just celebrating my 8-year cancer survivorship. So actually have my doctor's appointments this week and next. So full circle, here we are.
Congratulations, on having the tenacity and the strength and the power to heal yourself in such a beautiful way. And 16 rounds of, when you were just describing that, I can't even imagine. How many years did it go from when you were diagnosed to when you were declared cancer-free?
Well, I don't think my doctors ever used the words cancer-free. They are more of a no evidence of disease type group.
Yeah.
But cancer isn't a 1-year deal. Active treatment for me ended in 16.
Okay.
So it was about a year and a half, a year and 9 months, I would say, was active treatment.
Okay.
And then you go on the aromatase inhibitor, which is very much a big deal. It's a much bigger deal than doctors tell you it is, as far as what it does to your body. So I feel like I'm literally just now, fall of 2022, actually off all cancer drugs, all cancer, anything. Does that make sense?
For sure. Absolutely. Well, congratulations.
It was a 7-year journey, not a 1.5-year journey. It was a 7-year journey.
Absolutely. What advice would you have for someone who's early in their diagnosis?
It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And you have to take it one step at a time, because if you don't, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get absolutely overwhelmed, and you just need to focus on what you have to do today. And then the biggest portion of your journey is you have to be your own advocate. Nobody else is going to advocate for you. You have to advocate for you, whether that's what doctors you see, what surgeons you see, what your treatment looks like, when you have treatment, what ancillary things you do. You have to advocate. It's your life.
It was one of those things that I realized of most patients almost abdicate their control to their doctor, but we are the CEO of our health journey, and no one is going to strategize or build or advocate. And there are many, many examples in my journey as well, where if I wouldn't have said something, I would have had 6 or 8 months of a treatment that didn't work, or I would be filled with toxicity, or I wouldn't have had the right testing. So I couldn't agree more that advocating for yourself, it is your right. It is also your duty as a cancer patient to do that. So I love that that's your advice, because I couldn't agree more on how critical that is. And I love the part of choosing your team as well. I'm an industrial psychologist at heart. And so building a strong team to me was one of the things that set my story apart. And I think it's so important to have someone that really works with you and doesn't just tell you what they think you should do. Mm-hmm. So I love those pieces of advice. Okay, so this is one more thing. And of course, maximize joy is my mantra. So what is something that is an unexpected silver lining of your cancer experience?
Well, I think I have 2. Okay. So one was starting my company, Warrior Caps.
Yeah.
Without cancer, that wouldn't have happened. And the second one, kind of unexpected in how it happened, is I have 3 children a 3, 4, and 5-year-old because of my cancer journey. Without the steps and the things that I went through, these 3 babies of mine would not be my babies. So I have 2 pretty big ones.
2 big ones. Okay. So let me take a second because I want to put a pin in that second one you just talked about, because I actually want to invite you back for a session to talk about fertility and what you've done to create the life that you really envisioned. Because I think it's so important, but I do want to take a minute because I do believe this week was a pretty big celebration and a moment for your life. And I think it was a big anniversary of you having these children join your family. So congratulations. We're so excited for you. So congrats on that as well. Let's circle back to Warrior Caps because that's kind of why we're here today. And tell me a little bit about what in your experience led you or inspired you to become an entrepreneur.
So I was laying in my bed crying uncontrollable fear when I was diagnosed. And it was, 2:00 in the morning. I don't know. And I did what I tell all of my warriors not to do. I was Googling Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
But one of the things, I'm 39, I'm still young. And here I am, you're telling me I'm going to lose every hair on my body. So, I'm literally Googling, how do I keep my hair? How do I, is there anything? Is there any chance of me keeping my hair? And I stumbled on cold cap therapy. And I sent an email, I think it was literally about 2:00 in the morning, to my family and said, I'm going to do this. No one had ever heard of it. It was this crazy thing called cold caps. And I did it. And I'll never forget my own cancer center. The first day I had chemo, they looked at we were in the elevator and they looked at my dad and they said, she is going to lose all of her hair and you are wasting your money. Okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
And through 16 rounds, lo and behold, I ended with hair. Not all of my hair, but enough where no one would know. And throughout, of course, this was before social media influencers or content creators, but I would post my journey very openly on Facebook. And I started kind of helping people through the process. So when it was all said and done, I was like, I can do this. And I can do it less expensive and I can be more of a support system. Because as I looked around the chemo room, I saw people who looked like my mother and my grandmother, but I didn't see anyone who looked like me. So if I could provide cold cap therapy and a support system in the process, why not try it?
My first time in the waiting room to go and talk to the oncologist, that I looked at my mom and I burst out in tears and I said, these people are not my contemporaries. And she said, then make them your contemporaries. And it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how we can even the battlefield because I am 20 years or 30 years or 40 years younger than anyone in here. And then a teenager walked out of the infusion room and it hit me and I was like, okay, we are all contemporaries. It's a team none of us wanted to be part of, but we are part of the same team. Okay.
And drugs.
So talk to me a little bit about what did it mean to you to retain your hair during the cancer experience?
So, initially we didn't have expectations like they have today. Every week that I had hair was a bonus. I could still go out and no one would look at me and go, she has cancer.
Yeah.
I continued working all through chemo. I continued volunteering. I traveled to multiple places, events. I continued living life. Whether that meant going out to dinner with friends or going to Six Flags or to visit a racetrack in Florida. It meant I could walk around and no one knew that I was sick unless I told them. Now, there were other things, of course. I had other side effects. I didn't have eyebrows, but I got to retain my privacy. And I got to see me in the mirror. I looked in the mirror and I saw me. I didn't see someone else. One of my doctors said she thought I healed better because when I looked in the mirror, I could still see me. And she thought that led to me healing better throughout the process.
I think there's something to retaining control, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what happens, but you enacting your strategy, there's something to that for sure, because it's empowering. And you just had on something else that was such a pain point for me in my journey. And it was that pause before someone says hi. Oh, that was the worst, when they would be like, hi, instead of being like, how are you? It was that like, ooh, she's so fragile, I can't even ask her. And that was, to me, one of the worst things about cancer. But, it was interesting because they said I wouldn't have hair loss during my chemotherapy. Come to find out, I did lose a fair amount of the hair, probably about 50 to 60% of my volume went down. But even despite that, everyone I saw said, oh, you can't really be in chemo or in therapy because you have hair. And so it was one of those things where they didn't think I was sick enough because I still had my hair. So it's interesting to see how hair plays a role in people's expectation and what they do around cancer.
Oh my gosh. And you just touched on something very important. Because you have hair, people hold you to a standard of not being sick.
Yes.
Not all people. I think this could possibly play out in the workplace, where they don't see a sick person, quote unquote. So they may expect you to still perform at the highest level that you did before.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But it is such a gift to feel like a human being and not a pincushion. So I think what you're doing is creating that vision, and people think this is a vanity thing, and it is absolutely not. It is an empowerment thing, and it is a feeling like oneself thing. So, and I can appreciate, especially as a female, as you're losing those feminine parts of who you are, retaining your hair is kind of a minimum value proposition to make this experience livable.
I lost my breasts. Yeah. I lost all feeling, I had amazing surgeons, so I have more feeling than most.
Yeah.
I will say that, but I lost my breasts. I lost my feeling. I lost all my female organs, full hysterectomy, lost my ability to carry children, have children. Let me keep my hair. Let me keep something that makes me a female, that makes me outwardly.
For sure. So the first day they walked in and they said, this is never going to work. Mm-hmm. And each time you went in, every single time in those 16 times, you're able to say like, I've still got hair, which even that moment of like, I got it, must have given you a little strut in your step as you were walking in.
It was a blur. Everything was happening so fast, but yeah, we were excited. I had this amazing case manager, Marty, and she would come in smiling every day. She'd come and look at it. I was blessed. I had the same nurse from day one until the day I graduated chemo. Not everyone gets those blessings. I did. So I had a team of people that were behind us, but everyone was just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we looked like a circus coming in. We had this big cooler and what is she doing? And everyone was just kind of like, it was foreign. Totally foreign.
Okay. So what is the experience? Like I had the experience where my chemotherapy was oxaliplatin, and that creates cold sensitivity. And so while they said there was no issues with hair, and there was some issues with hair, my bigger worry was I shouldn't be able to open a car door or a refrigerator or touch the tops of my cabinets or drink anything that was room temperature or chillier. So, and I am an ice cold fanatic. I love ice cold water. That's what drives me. I'm willing to give up every other drink, but I can't give up my ice cold water. And so I would suck on ice chips the entire time I was there. And they told me no. I had to push in order to get my infusion center to allow me to do it. But I was able to drink cold water immediately after the infusion, had no problem. So I know what you're talking works inside and out. And the nurses were shocked and said, there's no way this is going to work. And it clearly works. And it's worked for hundreds of people who have colon cancer that have tried it. But talk to me a little bit about cold capping and what the actual experience is like for someone.
So the actual experience, we have been able to kind of refine it over the years.
Okay.
But you're basically, we use dry ice to lower the temperature of caps that go on someone's head. They are going to wear the caps an hour before chemo, during chemo, and then up to 5 hours after. The caps are frozen to minus 32 degrees. So it's very cold. But the funny thing is I've never had anyone say it's too cold, I can't do it, except myself. I did that. I said, there's no way I can do this. And luckily I had doctors that worked with me and were able to give me some things that helped kind of take the edge off. But they're cold and you're wearing that cap all day. Think of it kind of like a human popsicle. You know, your head is frozen to minus 32 degrees below zero. When the cap warms up, they're replacing it. So it's just repetition all day long. One cap goes on, one cap goes off, one cap goes on, one cap goes off. It could be an 8-hour day. It could be longer. It depends on how long the chemo lasts. There's nothing hard about it. It's repetition. The coldness is real, but you adjust to it. When I was going through chemo-induced menopause, I used to walk around with cold caps on my head.
Oh, that's so funny. I can imagine during a hot flash that would be like a welcome change. Yeah.
And y'all, it's been like 110 degrees in Texas for so long, I don't even know. And trust me, now I haven't used dry ice, but I put some in the freezer. And when I'm outside in the yard or playing with the kids, I swear to y'all, I put one on my head.
Oh, I love that. I love the multiple uses. Oh, I love it. Make it work for you wherever it is. Make it suck less. I love it. So,
and I think one thing that I got to control the process. It's something you said earlier. I got to sit there with my little clipboard and write down the times. So during that very stressful day of chemo, I controlled something.
Absolutely.
And I think, my brother was my capper. So he changed my caps on and off each time. But I wrote the times and I set the timer and I had control of this little tiny piece of what I was going through.
Yeah. It is important. It's so important.
The illusion of control.
Exactly. Okay. So talk to me a little bit. Okay. So it is a cold cap that goes on. Do you tie it on? Do you just place it on? Like what does that look like?
So, our cold caps, we don't reuse equipment. Some companies do, we don't. So when we place the cold cap, it just literally fits down onto the head. It's a tight fit because they've never been used before. It molds to the head. It's got gel inside. We do use what I call best fit straps because as you move around or you're up and down, we don't want the cold cap to move around. So we do use best fit straps. We use some things to keep you from getting frostbite because frankly, you're talking about below freezing temperatures. So we want to protect the forehead. We want to protect the tops of the ears. Places I got frostbite personally, I don't want you to get frostbite. So, it's a process, but nothing as prohibitive as people think it is. It's much easier than people think.
Okay. So what's the science behind this? Like, why does this actually work? Why negative 32? Like anything there you can shed some light on.
So the process is it's really quite elementary. They use cold caps cancer is a fast dividing cell. Everybody has cancer cells in their body, but most people's bodies fight it off, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's those of us that get cancer and our bodies can't fight that off. And so it's just a fast dividing cell that's gone rogue, right?
Yeah.
The chemotherapy comes in and it's killing those fast dividing cells. Your hair follicles happen to be one of the fastest dividing cells in your body. Wonderful. So while chemo is doing its job, killing the cancer, which we absolutely want it to do, it's also killing our hair follicles. So the science tells us that it works actually twofold. One, the veins, the arteries, the blood flow to the hair, it shrinks them. So there's not as much chemotherapy getting to the follicle. Step one. Step two is the cells in the follicles, it's dividing less frequently. So as they divide less frequently, they're not as attractive to chemo. Chemo's not going, oh, that's cancer, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. It's going, maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's almost the same science as nurses use when they tell you to ice your fingers or to chew on ice so you don't get mouth sores.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay, perfect. What are some of the fears or barriers or concerns a patient would have that would prevent them from wanting to consider this?
I think a lot of doctors still don't believe in the science. They have to see it multiple times. They have to see it work multiple times before they'll get behind it. And frankly, for most doctors, they don't care about your hair. They just want to cure your cancer, and thank God for them, right? That's why I say you have to advocate for yourself. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, but it hasn't changed anything, right? If you're still going to be cured, you're still going to get your chemo. Not making sense, am I?
Something you just mentioned, I just was doing some research to prepare for this conversation. And so I was trying to understand how many years does it take for something to become a standard of care? And I looked at, probably 50 or 60 different periodicals to make sure I could say something reputable in this conversation. And what I came back to was 17 years. And when you think about it, it takes 17 years for a pharmaceutical, which is their lane, which is their expertise that's been proven to become standard care across oncology. You can see how something like this, which is not their main focus, because their main focus, as you said, is to treat cancer, not to treat or heal the host, but to treat cancer. But when I looked at the Journal of Clinical Oncology in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember which year, they even said every single cancer patient should have a palliative care strategy that goes along with their treatment strategy. And what you're doing is exactly that. So I think this is actually something the medical field is recognized as important, because how you feel and who you are is just as important as if you are treating the cancer. So I just wanted to say it's 17 years is what my research showed as to when something actually becomes standard of care.
Well, and I think we are very blessed where I am in Texas. We have major medical centers that are way behind. I mean, UT Southwestern, Texas Oncology Practices, they are so on board with this.
Yeah.
But, that's a lot of the worst call, absolute worst call I get. Someone calls. I just heard about cold caps. Can I use them? I have 3 small children. I don't want to lose my hair. I started chemo 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because they don't know about it. I wish they just knew about it to have a choice. Because at that point, there's little I can do. So that's a huge barrier. The second barrier is a lot of people think if the cost is outrageous. And to me, it's not. It's very doable for most people. And for those that can't afford it, there are plenty of options. Even with us, we have options to help people. I will never let someone go without cold caps because of money. It just doesn't happen. But you read these stories of $4,000 and $5,000 to cold cap, and those are just not true. For any company that I know of, it's not true.
And you just said something I want to make sure that I can reinforce and double line underneath. When does someone need to start cold capping to maximize the effectiveness of it?
There is only one regimen that I would say, oh, you already started? Okay, let's go ahead and try it. And that would be when you're getting like weekly low dose chemo.
Okay.
Otherwise, you must start cold capping on your very first chemo. Because in a lot of cases, the person will be, their first big shed is going to be day 17, day 21. A lot of people go into chemo too, nearly bald if they haven't done chemo, if they haven't done cold capping.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing to say. I didn't realize you could prepare your body before chemo. And so my herbalist, Oscar, who many of you have heard, know very well, was able to prepare my body. So I didn't have that many side effects. And I had higher levels of magnesium and vitamin D and vitamin K, just like you would prepare for a marathon. That's exactly what you're saying. This is something you have to prepare and plan for. It's not something reactive. It's something proactively that you build into your strategy.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about preparing your body, because a lot of centers now they're offering, the massage therapy, the acupuncture, the nutritionist, all those things. So this is just another way to arm yourself to fight.
Absolutely. Now, I've heard that there's been some variabilities in outcomes. And so what impacts success rates with cold capping?
The number one thing is the chemo regimen. The harder the chemo, obviously, the harder it is to retain hair. I did AC. Adriamycin is one of the hardest chemos. It is also one of the hardest on the hair. Most people can expect to lose 40 to 50% on that regimen. A lot of people don't, but some do. It's hard. If you're doing low dose Taxol, even though you may have 12 rounds and you think, oh, that person only did 4 and I'm doing 12. Well, that's not reality because their 4 actually is harder than your 12. So the type of chemo is the first variability. The second is your hair, the health of your hair, where it is in its own life cycle. Is it getting ready to have a big shed before chemo? And those are things we don't know, we can't control.
Yeah.
The third variability is just how well you use the caps. Do you follow the directions? Do you have good contact? Do you have a good support? You know, if you have a question, can you call your cold cap company and they can walk you through kind of how to fix it? That's one of the problems. There is a lot of variability.
What are some of the best practices that you would recommend, or any super secret tips that you would say to make this easier, or make it easier to make sure you're doing it correctly?
The number one tip is just to make sure that you always have contact between the cold cap and your scalp. You as the patient are going to be able to feel that more than anyone. So I would always kind of press down on the hair. There's a lot of tips that we give you. And those tips, it's hard to get caught up in the minutia, but there's not a one-on-one correlation between the tips that we give you and your hair loss. All it is trying to keep your hair as healthy as possible. So I always say less is more, less washing, less hot tools, less blow drying. You know, those are all things that cause damage to your hair. So we want to lessen that as much as we can to keep your hair as healthy as possible. It also helps with the regrowth. The regrowth, you know, a lot of people forget that it can be just as important, even if you lose a lot of hair, more than we want you to lose. Because you cold capped, you're protecting those follicles and your regrowth is going to start faster. And I think there's also some really up and coming things that you can do to help with that regrowth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I was going to leave this towards the end, but I think you just gave me the cue. So I'm just going to add this real quick. Of one of the things we learned earlier was to help with regrowth from our friend Oscar, was some different dietary things that you can do to really improve the success after you've done this. Things like taking heishi wu, or that specific root, or nettle, or seaweed. In fact, I think the Madiri Centeries and even has a wash to help stimulate hair growth. So there's things you can do while you're in treatment, and there are things to do to regrow that hair. And in fact, as I mentioned, I lost probably 60% of my hair during chemotherapy. It's been 11 months since I finished. And my hair stylist just said to me when I went 2 weeks ago, and she goes, Julie, it's almost all gone. And I hadn't realized how bad it was. And it's curly today because the weather's bad in Atlanta, so you can't see. But you can see from about here to here, my hair's super thick. And from here, it's not. It's so thin that it just curls like crazy at the bottom. So it's wild that I can even see it with me. But it's so important to think about that hair regrowth and potentially some styles that can help on the way as you're regrowing as well. So.
Well, and I will mention one thing too. There is a drug, it's called Taxotere. It's a very common drug, especially with breast cancer. And it can, in a small portion of women, cause permanent hair loss. And that's one thing that cold caps help negate, that small percentage. And it is small, but I have personally seen it happen. So that's one other.
Good to know, especially if you're considering that pharmaceutical. Definitely check with your doctor, talk to them about this, and look at all of the options you have to prepare yourself so that your body will not have that outcome. Okay, so you mentioned something just a minute ago that I've heard on some of the many Facebook sites that I've been on, and it is that you should not shower or wash your hair the entire time you do this. So tell me, is that true or false? Is that something you should consider? Okay, so talk about that. Yes.
We want you to wash your hair. I mean, the buildup alone, if you don't, we ask that you wash your hair less. Less means 2 times a week, 3 times if you have somewhere to go. Again, when you wash your hair, it's the most fragile. That's why we don't want you to wash it. But we definitely want you to wash it to get the chemo, to get the drugs out of your hair. We want you to wash it. We want you to wash it. When you don't, you get buildup, and then there's not oxygen going to your follicles. That leads to so many issues, one of which is matting. You know, one sweet warrior, she wanted to follow my rules to a T, and bless her heart, she decided not to wash her hair. And she called, and I had to meet her a couple hours away from where I live. And unfortunately, after hours of trying to get her hair unmatted, we ended up cutting most of it off. There is not a one-on-one correlation.
Yeah.
There's more, even in real life, the people that don't blow dry their hair every day, they have healthier hair. The people that don't use flat irons or curlers, they have healthier hair. To this day, after I finished chemo, I don't wash my hair every day. And I have this baby fine hair. Look at this hair. It's baby fine. Where it used to be, if I didn't wash it every day, I'd get really greasy and it would look awful. But believe it or not, your body adjusts to it. It adjusts to the different schedule. My hair is as healthy as it's ever been, ever.
Awesome.
So yes, please wash your hair.
Okay, now there's lots of things that are saying I've got this, or I'm this, or I'm free of this, or I'm doing that. So talk to me a little bit about what you should look for best in class capping and what really matters when you're making a decision.
I think what the biggest thing that matters when you're making a decision is your customer service and how they fit with you. We are known for our customer service. We are very hands-on. We are very, I still talk to our very first warrior that we ever had. We actually chaired some nonprofit events together. If that's important to you, then, we might be the choice. If you don't need someone hands-on like that, look at some other companies, but the product for the most part, it all does the same thing. All of it does the same thing. You're paying for customer service and the capping, the actual physical cap.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, what are resources or what advice would you give to someone whose medical facility isn't supportive of this? Are there any groups or research or articles or experience or anything like that you would recommend for someone to maybe even learn before and to embolden themselves before they have that conversation or anything like that you would recommend?
There's a group called the Rapunzel Project, and they are a non-biased. They don't support one particular cold cap company. They support all cold capping in general. And they are an amazing resource. They have every type of cold cap listed. There are basically 5 manual caps, and there are 2 what I would call machine companies in the US. They talk about all the different options. They talk about nonprofit resources. They talk about research, where it started, where it's going. The Rapunzel Project is a one-stop location for all things cold cap.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay. How can someone get in touch or learn more about Warrior Cap specifically? Tell me a little bit about how someone could find you.
Hopefully they can find us everywhere. We're on the internet, warriorcaps.com. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page. And I always tell everyone, you can call me at any time. You may hear my 3 children in the background. But for the most part, I will always get back to you. I like to talk to our warriors personally, because I want to set their expectations up front. I want them to talk to someone that's been through it. I don't want them to fill out a form online and we just send them something and no one's ever talked to them. We will always have at least one conversation, sometimes many conversations before someone signs up with us.
What a gift that you offer that personal consultation to help someone really make sure they're making the right decision and feel comfortable. So in a post-COVID world where there's no customer service anywhere, like this just brings my industrial psychologist heart joy to know that you're actually still providing that service and making sure you are really helping these patients make this suck as little as possible and giving them every advantage in the possible book. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And we support everything, not just the cold capping. I have people, yesterday I had a warrior text me about her radiation was starting today. We try to be there for every phase of the journey that they need us to be. Some people don't need that. Some do. But whatever they need, however we can best support them is how we want to support them. We want to come and meet them where they're at.
I think that's one of the biggest gifts that you can give someone, especially a patient, because we all are coming at this from a little different. I don't think most people throw theme parties and have maximized joy banners when they go to an infusion. So I think I'm probably on the outside that I chose joy here. But everyone has some different level. And by helping them understand how they can empower themselves, the options they have, giving them the knowledge and the confidence to go and negotiate this with their healthcare facility, that's really a gift. And so from one cancer thriver to another. First off, I want to say, hell yeah, girl, you've done it. And thank you. And I'm so excited to see you succeed and take what the pain that you had to survive through and turn it around so that other people don't have that pain. So, A, first off, thank you.
Thank you.
B, I'm so happy to see your success and so happy to be part of it. Certainly, as we post this, there will be all sorts of links that we'll put on the bottom to the Rapunzel Project, to Warrior Caps, to make sure that you understand how you can reach out and talk with Lisa, because we want to make sure you have every advantage in this battle and you know exactly what you can do to really prepare yourself for success. So we will certainly have everything ready for you as we launch this so that it's super easy for you to find. And I'm hopeful we'll do some blogs together so that way we can share more about some of the things you can do during treatment and after treatment to really help with something that's so important, such as feeling and looking your best.
I'm so excited to watch your growth and the things that you're creating. It's a lot of things that we've talked about over the years, but to see you actually creating it, it's pretty amazing.
It is my gift back. And this is my entrepreneurial spirit. Is I went through this and I spent 7 weeks trying to research and figure things out. And I frankly knew, like you, I would wake up in the middle of the night crying, thinking if I had kids or if I didn't have scarcity issues or if I didn't live in a healthcare dense city, I couldn't do what I'm doing. And so it really is driving me to try and create Mojo Health so that everyone has the same advantages that we were able to create when it wasn't there for us. So I'm so excited to have you come back because I know fertility issues, especially for our female patients, is so important to consider. So I appreciate your willingness to come back and just want to give a little shout out that is coming. And we're going to have a couple people join so that we can have a broader conversation, because people have had different experiences with fertility treatment during cancer treatment. So I definitely want to spend some time there. But Lisa, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Congratulations. Hell yeah, 8 years. I'm so excited to watch your success and be a part of your team. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For everyone else and all of our patients, wishing you so much love, joy, peace, gratitude, and health. Thank you for joining Mojo Rising. We hope this session will empower you to make cancer suck as little as possible. And we wish you so much success on your journey. Thank you so much, all. Good luck.